you just mentioned that you suffered your stroke at age 37.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think led up to that? Was it stress? What was the things that were going on at that time that you think led up to that?
Yeah, in 2004, I was really sick. So it started like that January where I was traveling for work. I think I was in California. My doctor called and said, well, you need to get home because I'm seeing something going on with your thyroid. I'm like, okay, which had always been perfect. And so then a few months later, I'm having trouble breathing. I'm having trouble walking, and you might have tuberculosis. I'm like, okay.
Wow.
So, and this time I'm living in Virginia, and so I'm at home, and I can't leave the house because I can't, for 2 weeks, so I'm not spreading tuberculosis. So more testing, and so my health just kind of started to deteriorate, and so probably by the summer I was diagnosed with sarcoidosis.
What is that? So hi, welcome to another episode of What's Up with DJ, and my name is DJ. Each week I bring you topics about current events, holistic living, finance, budget, career development, and stories that may make you laugh or give you inspiration. So please think about subscribing, following, of course, like, comment, and if you're feeling extra, leave a review on Apple Podcasts. So with that being said, let's get into the show. My guest this week is Kamaria Richmond, founder of Camaria Richmond Media. She's the host and producer of the Stroke Diva Fabulous radio show. Her show was a reinvention after a stroke in 2004. Camaria says, the show is a part of my cognitive therapy. Camaria's show highlights and provides a platform for entrepreneurs. The show allows her to meet others online who she would not be able to connect with in a social setting. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, DJ, for having me.
Yes, I was on your show a few months ago, and I really enjoyed having the conversation with you. And I said, when I get my podcast up and running, I'm going to reach back around to you and have you on my show. And now it's happening.
Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed having you on.
Yes, thank you. And we're both Unity members.
Yes.
And we're in Unity churches. There are several different churches throughout the country and the world, but we are part of the Unity of Washington, D.C. And I love that church. I'm so glad that I found it and found this church where it sort of kind of just it has all the beliefs that I believe, and I just enjoy Reverend Sylvia Sumter. I just think she's an amazing leader for our church. She's the head reverend, and I especially like when she says, "I don't preach, I give a talk." I like that.
Absolutely. I joined Unity in 2001.
Oh, wow.
And I was living in Atlanta at the time. And we have a mutual friend, Ananda Leek. So shout out to anandaleek.com. She said, KT, when you move back home, I have a church for you. And I'm like, okay. And so I came home and went to the first service. And I don't remember what Reverend Sylvia was talking about, but I was like, I'm joining this church. Mm-hmm. So that first introduction to Unity, and I had been studying New Thought and over the years, but Reverend Sylvia brings it home.
Yes, she does.
She's a great teacher, and so I was very active in the church until the stroke from 2001 to 2004. And so after the stroke, I moved in with my mom so that she could be my caregiver. But one of the blessings of COVID is that, hey, Unity of Washington, D.C. is online. And so I'm now able to participate in the classes and service every Sunday because it's online. And so part of, the stroke was, I no longer drive. And that it kind of put a wrinkle.
Yeah, I can imagine.
A lot of different things. And I missed going to church 3-4 times a week because there's always a class.
Yes, it is. They definitely believe in classes.
And so now I'm able to participate thanks to the internet.
Yeah. COVID has, one thing that I struggled to say, until recently, that COVID has some advantages to it. It wasn't, it's of course, people have lost loved ones and friends, and people are still going through health issues due to COVID. So that's definitely something that needs to be always prayed about.
Absolutely.
But the other side of it is that it did sort of release us from traffic, and it was like, for me, it's been more. It's been better, especially for us introverts. I don't know if you're an introvert or not, but I am. And even though I love being around people and I enjoy especially conversations and especially in groups, but I have to recharge alone. And what COVID has allowed me to do is I get to recharge a lot faster, get to my corner, as I say, a lot faster now, being that I'm at home already, instead of struggling to get home to get to my solace.
Oh, I totally understand. And, the loss of life has been devastating for lots of folks, but it has opened up opportunities for churches and for businesses and for podcasters like us.
It definitely has.
Because, people are home and now they're able to carve in more time. Things, that they want to do and that they need to do and love to do.
Yeah, I got 2 or 3 hours back every single day during the week. Monday through Friday, because it took me an hour, it's not an hour and a half to get to work. Sometimes an hour and a half to get from work. So that's 2-3 hours. Sometimes you're losing every single day just being in traffic and getting back and forth from work to home. And now you get all that back. It's like you're free from a part-time job. So that I definitely appreciate. But again, still, when I always say that, I always stop and still say, hey, there are people out there that are still severely struggling from COVID, if it's their health, their businesses, their jobs. So I never forget about them. And I always say a prayer for those people that are being negatively impacted by COVID, that I'm not forgetting about them either. So, So I had mentioned in the introduction that I was on your podcast because you have your podcast as well. And I'll leave the link in the show description called the Stroke Diva Fabulous Radio Show. And so I think you did mention earlier about the stroke that you experienced in 2004. Was that the reason why you began your podcast?
Absolutely. So Ananda that I mentioned earlier, Ananda Leak, and AnandaLeak.com. So my major was radio, television, and film. And of course, once I graduated, I did something completely different. It's a whole different deal. But while I was in school, I was interning at WPFW, Washington. Wow. I used to do the public awareness calendar. And I started doing some other things, and I kind of turned that over to Ananda. And so radio and TV and film has been something I've been doing since, the late 80s. And, but once I graduated, I went to a totally different universe, actually. And so after I had the stroke, and I had to do speech therapy and cognitive therapy and occupational therapy and eye therapy. I've gone through since 2004, still doing cognitive therapy. I had to learn how to do lots of things all over again. And so Ananda said, well, KT, you're going to have to reinvent yourself. And I know we're going to talk about that. She's like, so, life is different for you now. And this was back in 2011. When we started the Stroke Diva Fabulous show. She's like, life is going to be different for you now, but there's still things that you can do. And I'm going to help you get back into communications and, doing online. And then, being online it was still kind of, and it's
new.
So I was like, okay, I'm going to be online and I can do a show online. Okay.
Right.
She's like, we're going to call it the Stroke Diva Fabulous Show because, you have a stroke, but you're still fabulous.
Yes.
You still, you look good. You're able to function. So, let's take it from there. So she trained me for about a year on how to do a show, how to connect with people, to do interviews. And she was like my producer for a whole year. And she's like,
wow.
After the year, then it's like on you. And I said, okay. And so, she gave me a strict schedule on how to prepare and what to do for a show. And then after she left, her father, Dr. John Leake, was my producer for a couple of months. I'm like, John, I still need a producer. and he's like, I'll do it. And so he was my producer for a couple of months. And then I finally kind of got all the kinks out and I was able to do it myself. But it was a way of me being able to connect with people. And so, she's been into social media since the early 2000s. And I was like, well, what is a Facebook? And, what is a Blogalicious? These conferences that you go to, Hugging Y Brown. And so I was like, I want to kind of get into that. And so it was just a way for me to be able to connect to the people on the outside because I wasn't out driving up and down the highway, several times a week, meeting new people. I was able to do it online. And so being on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and, all these social media platforms just gave me a way to connect with people, not just here, but people all around the world. So
that's what I like about it.
I've interviewed people from, all over the world, which has been exciting. And so that's not something I would have done if it hadn't been for this experience.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why I love doing my podcast as well. I get to talk to people that I know I would never get a chance to talk to otherwise. So it's been definitely a blessing for me. I've been doing podcasting for some years off and on, and I never felt that it had the right platform or, I really didn't know how podcasting really worked. And then it's like slowly through trial and error, I sort of figured it out until I got the current format. But I had been doing it, and I had another show. It was from an online. It was an online network, and called the Awakened Network. It was called. And, I just didn't, I love feedback. And with that, and you got like no feedback because it was just a website. So I'm saying it's not really what I want. So then I moved to podcasting and then, still was like, I don't know if anybody's listening. So, and then when I started with this time, I started incorporating, social media along with my podcast, like you do as well. And that got me a bit more people responding and getting in podcasting, when you're with certain platforms, they do give you analytics to listeners and downloads and things like that. So you do get a bit of information, but it's always great to have a conversation. Like I tell people all the time, even when I said in the opening, if you want to reach out and holler at a brother, I am here. So definitely you can check me and Camaria out in the show description to find out how to get in contact with us. So, being that we're both very spiritual people, because, to me, to be a Unity member, you have to, I think, understand that we are spiritual beings in a physical body, right?
Absolutely.
So what brought you to, what made you bring spirituality to the forefront of your life?
If growing up, we, let's see, how do I say it? So having, spirit or God or, however folks choose to name it, being centered in your life is very grounding. Mm-hmm. And if I hadn't had a spiritual community, of course, along with my family and friends, going through the trials and tribulations of having a stroke at the age of 37,
wow,
I would totally be different, I know, but because I had the Unity teachings of new thought on, our thoughts are prayers, and what we believe we can conceive, and all those little nuggets of wisdom that you get through new thought teachings. Mm-hmm. Instead of going into woe with me, I could go back, into the daily prayers that we do.
Every morning.
And I could reach back into, even though in the beginning I was having trouble reading, I could still, and I was having trouble with my memory, and still do, but I could.
We all do.
All of that. I could look at all of that, and because I had been practicing for so long, it was just coming to me automatically. So all of our daily affirmations, I never lost. And that kind of kept me going through, because I wasn't going to church and I wasn't around a lot of people, but having, just notes from all of our classes on healing, because, part of Unity is your healing, being able to focus on those affirmations and those teachings. That's just made a huge impact, and to be able to go back to it now and to continue with the classes has really helped. So if I didn't have that spiritual balance or that spiritual foundation.
Spiritual foundation.
I know other people that have had strokes, and not only did they not have health care, but they didn't have a community, they didn't have family. So the journey has been different. Mm-hmm. And so I know mine would have been different if I didn't have that foundation, for sure.
So you just mentioned that you suffered your stroke at age 37. Mm-hmm. What do you think led up to that? Was it stress? What was the things that were going on at that time that you think led up to that?
Yeah, in 2004, I was really sick. So it started like that January, where I was traveling for work. I think I was in California. My doctor called and said, well, you need to get home because I'm seeing something going on with your thyroid. I'm like, okay, which had always been perfect. And so then a few months later, I'm having trouble breathing. I'm having trouble walking. And, you might have tuberculosis. I'm like, okay.
Wow.
So, and this time I'm living in Virginia, and so I'm at home and I can't leave the house because I can't, for 2 weeks, so I'm not spreading tuberculosis. So more testing. And so my health just kind of started to deteriorate. And so probably by the summer, I was diagnosed with sarcoidosis, which
What is that?
is, so sarcoid can affect any area of your body. It goes into your lymph nodes, and it's more of a I'm gonna have to search for the word, a da, 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 your immune system has been compromised. So
Okay.
the organs start to kind of attack one another. And they don't know what causes it, but it's very popular in Black people, especially Black women.
And what is it called
And
again?
sarcoidosis. And
Sarcoidosis.
Eastern Europeans. So Bernie Mac had it. He actually died from sarcoid. There are lots of celebrities now. Tisha from Martin.
Tisha Campbell.
Tisha Campbell, she has it. A couple of celebrities have it now, so it's a little bit more well known. But it's an inflammatory disease. So, things in your joints become inflamed, and it can affect your brain. For me, it's the eyes, it's the breathing, it's my joints. So what causes it? They don't know. But for me, that whole year going through health challenge after health challenge, I was working a lot. I was traveling a lot, busy a lot, and just kind of going nonstop. And so I just think that was spirit saying,
compounding.
Just everything was just, you start getting stressed and you're not happy, and you're running out of time and you're running on fumes. And so I think it was just time to just stop, because they did countless tests and they couldn't figure out why I was having a stroke. But I had like the worst headache of my life. I went to the emergency room. I'm not a morning person, but I got up that Sunday morning and went to the emergency room. And they said, oh, well, you're having migraines. And so they sent me home. And it wasn't until later that I have a friend that's a doctor that she went through my medical history. And I had no idea. I had been throwing up, and I had been at the hospital all day. So my memory was kind of, I was kind of losing it then. But they sent me home. I started taking some medication like every 4 hours because my head was just pounding. And about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, I went to send a friend an email, and I couldn't read or write. But I had no idea what was going on. I was like, why can't I read or write? I must be really, really tired. Let me go to bed. And then about 18 hours later, I see these men, they're knocking down my door and slapping me and like, are you okay?
Wow.
So I had been unconscious. But my family was on it because, by that time I had stopped working. I could barely walk. So I was everyone knew I was at home, but I wasn't.
So they were checking on you.
So everyone was checking, and I could hear the phone ringing, and I could hear a friend of mine knocking on the door. And I'm like, what is she doing? What's she doing here this time of the morning? What in the world is going on? And then, the door opens. So I had just been in this state for 18 hours, not knowing what was going on.
Wow.
Not until they knocked down the door, and I still didn't know what was going on. By the time we got to the hospital, one of my rheumatologists was there, and she was stroking my face. I go, what is going on?
And you still hadn't hit you yet.
No, I had no idea what was going on. I'm like, why are people crying? And what is it? And so I was like, oh, I'm going to go back to sleep. I think I'm still kind of tired. And so now they know, if someone at a young age comes to the hospital and they're having severe headaches, and they don't normally get headaches, now they have in place where they do more checking. But back in 2004, it wasn't just, oh, you're having migraines. But
Yeah.
I mean, it was the worst migraine of my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so scary because, you know, um, I know hospitals are busy, probably busier than they've been in a long time with this whole COVID thing. But one
Mm-hmm.
thing that scares me a lot of times when I hear people go to the doctor and they're suffering from something that sounds very serious and they're just sort of sit home. And I'm like, especially if it's a headache, because it's an aneurysm, you don't know if it's, a
Right.
stroke, a heart attack,
Right.
you don't really know what it is. And when I hear them just send someone home, I'm like, oh God, I really hope that is nothing serious.
Mm-hmm.
And then yours ultimately turned out to be extremely serious.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so now I know it's gotten better. Well, of course, like you said, COVID put something else, takes it to a whole different level. But yeah, but back then, they just thought it was something normal. And I was like,
All right. Yeah. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. It's just, I say it's scary because, I know how busy emergency rooms are,
Right.
and sometimes it's easy to say, oh, you have a headache. Okay, well, we'll give you this and go home,
Mm-hmm.
and not because they're trying to neglect you, but because they are so busy and there are people who have issues that are external issues. You got blood gushing out, or obviously
Mm-hmm.
something's, the doctor wants to tend to that. When you have someone that's suffering from a stroke that's not clearly visible that this person's in
Right.
early stages of stroke, they are more easily to send you home because they don't see the things that happen in terms of a stroke is not something that is external, it's internal.
Right. And two, if you in going, by yourself, if you don't have someone with you, a patient advocate,
Mm,
it's easy to just send people, it's easier to just send them away. But if you have someone with you that can fight for you, then, just going through this whole process, having good health care and having, my mom and my family members and my dad and friends as patient advocates, having people there for you to help you fight the good fight
mhm.
is priceless.
Yeah, I can imagine. And
Mm-hmm.
like you just said a few minutes ago, having, when you're trying to fend for yourself, when you're, in the early stages of a stroke and you're trying to convince someone that, I need help, I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure it's going to be as easy to convince someone when you're not in those stages. But like you
Right.
said, I think what you said was very profound, that it's really a blessing to have someone with you that can speak up for you, because you can't speak up for yourself the way that you would normally speak up for yourself, because you are in probably the worst condition of your life.
Mm-hmm. And you don't know what's going on.
Yeah, you don't know what's going on. To have someone
Like,
slapping you in the face,
it's
saying
like
hello, you still there.
my brain is something's going on with my brain. I can't tell you what it is at the moment. But
Right.
something is not right. I can tell you
Exactly.
that something's not right. And
Right.
there are a whole host of reasons, why we don't get the health care that we deserve.
Hmm.
So especially,
Yeah. So
yeah.
basically what you're saying, what you would have done differently if you would have taken someone with you that you knew would have been an
Mhm.
advocate for you, that would have speak
Right.
up for you. Yeah.
Right. So, and that's the thing, you can, I think it's important to share people's stories. So that's why I'm so thankful that you're having me on. I think the more that people hear stories, it's like a little ding ding. So if it happens to them or someone they know, they can say, okay, you know what? I heard that happen to someone once.
Hmm.
Let me go with you and let's make sure that things are
Yeah.
okay. Because if
Yeah.
something's going on in your brain, I can tell you
Hmm.
it's, you're not going to remember you're not, it's just not going to
you're not going to be able to defend for yourself. It's a done deal, basically. You know, whatever the doctor says, I'm going to see you, not see you. It's basically you're at the mercy of that nurse or that doctor.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I really wanted to just, you hinted a little bit on about your road to recovery and how you had to sort of, sort of figure out your new normal, and I'm sure this COVID has been another new normal for you on top of, you're getting through your rehabilitation in 2004. How did you reinvent yourself and get yourself to a place where you felt like, okay, I don't know how the end, I'm not saying even the end has gotten here, nowhere near the end, but where you're at now, where you're have your stroke of fabulous, your stroke diva fabulous. How do you get to that state? How do you get from being in the hospital, the doctor, everyone is around you crying, you don't even know what's going on, to a place where, and probably at that time they know if you're going to recover. I'm quite sure when they finally explained to you the impact of what had just happened, like, oh my God. And then getting to a place where you are now, how do you do that? How do you get to where you are now, where you were then, to where you are now, where you have hope, where you have some fabulousness, where you can say to other people, I may be on the other side, or I may not be on the other side just yet where I want to be, but I'm a lot better than where I was.
Oh, well, definitely, absolutely a lot better than where I was. And when it started with the podcast, Ananda had BAP Living Radio, And so I did her present moment. I was her present moment correspondent. And so it allowed me to think about things that I wanted to talk about what's living in the present moment and what that feels like now. And so I think we probably did that maybe 2009, 2010. And because up until that point, I mean, I was just still weeks of years of just therapy.
Yeah.
So at that time. And so being able to be on her show, kind of formulating what I wanted to talk about and being present and what that meant, being present. But yes, I'm still learning to read and write, and I'm still doing, physical therapy and my cognitive therapy and my occupational therapy. It prepared me to do the podcast, the Stroke Diva Fabulous Show, but also the show helps me because, one, I have to do research on people. So before I wasn't using my computer except, for work, but now I'm having to learn how to use skills on how to research people and how to connect with people and what kind of questions should I ask, and just learning how to do ABC stuff for people. Like for me, even today, to prepare for a show, like it could probably take someone a couple hours to do what I do, but it takes me a couple days.
Wow.
Even now, just to go online and to do research and to read emails and to read backgrounds. I mean, that's like my whole day. It takes me hours to send an email. Like most people can probably send an email in about 5 minutes. To send you an email, maybe one or two, let's say 5 sentences, it can still take me up to a couple hours to send an email.
Wow. Just the typing itself, or just getting the structure?
It's typing, it's structure, but my brain is working a little bit it's working slower
Mm-hmm.
than it used to, where I could do stuff, super, super quick. It takes me a while to get things done online. Now, I'm better and faster than I was, but it still takes me quite a time because I'm like, well, does that sound right? And I'm using all the different tools for my spelling and
Yeah. Yeah.
pronunciation and was that Grammarly or
Yeah.
so,
I'm a very happy Grammarly customer.
yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, I'm still using tools to kind of help me, whether I can speak it, because I was using for a while the software where you can speak, but with Siri and Alexa and all of that. So I'm using all these tools to get through, but it's still very time consuming. So although I've come a long way, it's still challenging to do what I do. Like I can't do it quick, fast, in a hurry. It takes time. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that definitely reminds me, because I'm always complaining when the app doesn't open up as soon as I click the button, or or my computer is not running as fast as it usually runs, and I'm like, I'm taking myself through all kinds of challenges. But that kind of makes me see that I have to slow down. Even our technology has to slow down.
Right.
And it goes back to you were saying earlier about you were so busy trying to get things done and doing your life, and we get caught up and sometimes I think it's detrimental to our health. Well, not sometimes. I mean, in a lot of cases, it is.
Because I hadn't really had any serious health issues, so I wasn't really paying attention to health, because I wasn't expecting anything this drastic to ever happen. So once you start getting these little signs, Oprah calls it like the little whispers.
They get the whisper, the pebble, the brick, and the brick wall.
Yeah, definitely that brick wall. Boom. So just paying attention to what you're being intentional about, is key. And the one thing now, this last year and a half, people are slowing down, and and they're starting businesses. They're starting families, and I think everyone now is at a place where what is my intention for doing what it is I want to do.
Yeah, it definitely, your story, listening to you, definitely makes me want to definitely be more intentional, and also figure out what's really important to me. Because for you, I'm sure, for you to take on an activity, it has to be something that you really want to do.
Yes.
And so for me, it's always like, I want to do this, and I want to do that, and I want to do this, and I want to do that. And the question that I think is a better thing, or a better way of attacking things to do, is this that important to me, where I want to give my time and energy to this thing? Because it may not be. It may not be the level of stress that I want to put on myself. It may not even be worth it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are picking up on that. So
yeah, more than ever.
Yeah, which is why I think your show is important. Just to be a reminder, because you have great guests where you're telling, really stories. I was listening to the last podcast, and I believe the woman was an author, but she was just, had just some real good nuggets. And every year I just take, some time, because, just sitting at the computer, it's like, the neck hurts, the back hurts. And when you're talking to people and you're taking in all that energy, because everyone has a great story to tell, and some are more positive, and some are more challenging. But when you're talking to people all the time, sometimes of course, I know I'm always learning from I'm always learning from someone that I'm talking to.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes you just have to say, okay, well, I just need a little bit more time just to breathe. So every year, whether it's November or December or January and February or like this summer, so you
have to pull yourself away from it all,
Yes.
And like you said earlier, it does have an energy. And I think any spiritual person who puts spirituality at the forefront, and people always ask me, what do you mean by spirituality? I said, well, it's kind of hard everyone has the definition, but right. I know so many empaths, they just absorb everybody's energy. So when you're interacting with someone, or you're in a room, or even listen to the radio, the TV, you just absorb all the energy that's coming out of that, and it just affects your mood. It affects everything about your day. So I do have to pull myself away and be like, oh, I can't watch that. Oh, I can't be part of that, because I know that, I'll be on the internet all day long. I'll listen to a news story, and I will be on the internet all day long researching that news story, because I got to find out everything about it, and just sucking all that energy in. And that's why I have to cut the news off, because I would be on the internet all day researching about a story that I heard. So I'll let you go.
Okay, well, enjoy the rest of your evening. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yes.
And I'll see you online.
I'll see you online.
Okay. Bye, DJ. Thanks.
Hope you enjoyed my conversation with Kamaria Richmond, host of the podcast, The Stroke Diva Fabulous Radio Show. You can find episodes of The Stroke Diva Fabulous Radio Show on TalkShoe.com. I'll have the direct links to her show and more information about Kamaria in the show description. Or you can email me, dj@whatsupwithdj.com, for more information about Kamaria and The Stroke Diva Fabulous Radio Show.